in your head, there's all these evil voices that want to take you down. And
Hmm.
so I think you have to decide what's more important, the future I want to create or these voices in my head. And you have to use courage to get past that. That's the key is courage, courageously leaning into an identity you want to create for yourself so you can create the future you want.
If you're an active real estate investor and you're looking to do larger deals, you're in the right place. We are going to go and take the conceptual type of stuff that you listen to from other real estate podcasts and bring it down to the tactical, the nitty gritty, the actual actionable types of things that other real estate investors that went big did to grow their own real estate empire. You're listening to the Go Big Live podcast. I'm your host, Matt Druin. Welcome. How are you doing? This is Matt Druin with the Go Big Live Real Estate Investors podcast. Today, I have a special guest, Mr. Tim Cornwell. After starting his real estate journey with fix and flips in 2010, Tim has been involved in a wide range of investments from subdivided land and designed duplexes to multifamily, mobile home parks, and office. In 2012, he acquired his real estate license, opened his own brokerage, and is actively involved in all aspects of the real estate journey for not only himself, but for others as well through his brokerage firm. You're definitely not going to want to miss the opportunity to engage also in live Q&A with Tim. He's got a diverse background experience, not only in real estate brokerage, but also as a investor himself, which I'm always trying to get real estate people to invest in real estate. I'm evangelical about it. But anyways, thanks for coming on the show, Tim. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So let's dive in. You were born and now you're here. What happened in between?
Hopefully a lot of exciting things and a lot of failures that I learned from along the way. I'm definitely one of those guys that I've had some great mentorship, but really most of my results have been from just going out and going for it, giving it a shot and hoping that it all works out. Fortunately, I've been blessed or lucky, however you want to look at it, that I haven't had any career ending decisions that I've made as an investor. Not all of them have been home runs, but at least we've got a few good singles lined up there that have, worked out okay. So I feel like my potential is so much bigger than what I've actually accomplished. And I think probably everyone feels that same way, regardless of what level of success you've had. So every day I'm pursuing my potential, taking it to the next level. It's really interesting how back in the beginning, just doing one transaction if I could do one wholesale deal and assign a contract, that would have been epic, the biggest thing I've ever done. And now if you look back and it's like, okay, well, that's a great tool and toolbox. And there's a lot more that I could do. And so, from the beginning to where we are today, it's really been a journey starting in 2010 of watching flipping shows on TV. And Saturday mornings, I'm on Discovery Channel and I'm watching these guys. And I'm, because I didn't have a pathway to wealth, I was working a job, and in a job, you get whatever they pay you. And that's really about it. They tell you when to come and go and what vacation you can or can't have, and just the corporate world and having a boss. And so I'm an entrepreneur at heart and was always seeking what is the right vehicle to create wealth in my life and to have more than just average, have more than just kind of the American dream, which is, go to school, get a degree, climb the corporate ladder, get a house, and hopefully have a retirement one day. And I'm like, there's got to be more than that. I think I'm capable of creating an extraordinary life. And so real estate was something that I discovered, like I said, in 2010, watching these shows, and then started going to local real estate investor meetups and hearing people that were doing amazing things like owning apartment complexes in Texas and generating hundreds of thousands of dollars in passive income. And that was like so far beyond anything I had ever thought was even possible. I didn't even know that concept existed. I'd never really thought about apartment buildings and someone owns those. And how does that all work? It was just like, boop, just a blip in my visual lens. And so really hearing what was possible and wrapping my head around it. And again, like these flipping shows, like these guys are going in, buying a single family house at an auction or distress sale or whatever. And they go in and fix it up, sell it for a profit. And I think that's one of the coolest things about investing is that if you see someone else can do it and you observe them, accomplishing results in their life. And that's what happened to me. It's like, I've seen these guys do this so many times in different parts of the country with different personality types. I think I could do that too. And so that's what I set out to do, was to just go out and do my first deal.
Mhm.
And so did that first deal in 2010. And then since then, in 2012 went full time as a real estate investor, real estate agent. And I've been continually focused on real estate ever since then. So what's that been? 13 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said something that actually stuck with me, Tim, and it was sounds like you're like a lifelong learner. And was there a point in time in your journey that you felt like you had it all figured out?
Man, I wish that were true. Never. I have always felt like I have so much to learn. And, there are levels of confidence that come with acquiring a property and it all works out. Like you
Mhm,
got to closing. And whether that was an assignment and you received an assignment fee, or whether that was a property you acquired and then you took ownership of it and now you're operating it, whatever, there was definitely these thresholds along the way of accomplishment, and then that
mhm,
builds confidence. So in the beginning, I saw, hey, I want to buy this building. I want to buy a building like that fits this category. I want to buy an apartment.
mhm,
Okay. Well, what does that mean? What does that look like? And how do I do that? And so from that thought to we got to the finish line. I got recording numbers. My name's on title. Wow, I did
mhm,
it. That level there creates a level of confidence because I went through all those steps to get there. You don't accidentally buy an investment property. And so if I can do it once, I can do it 1,000 times. If I can
mhm.
buy a 10 unit apartment, I could buy a 100 unit apartment. I could buy 1,000 unit apartment. And
Mhm.
so that's the cool thing about real estate investing is every step you take, you establish a new threshold, a new foundation, a new base that you work off the next part of your journey.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that is because when I was 25 years old, and I think I had like 3 properties and 14 units at the time, I thought I had it all figured out, and, I was quickly humbled and humbled many times during that process, and it was only until I realized that, like, if I don't feel like I'm just scratching the surface, then I'm not growing, and I think that it's just been something that's been comforting to me when I had that shift in mindset. So, it's like I interview people that have been like you, like lifelong learners, like, and that sort of thing. And then I've met people like myself that are sort of hammerheads and, have struggled with arrogance in the past and gone through that sort of spiritual evolution as to those things. It usually is a result of, getting your teeth kicked in several times, sometimes making the same mistakes more than once. So I just wanted to hear a little bit about that. Well, in the green room, we were talking about you've done commercial deals in the past. I'm curious about this mobile home park deal you did or a manufactured housing community deal. I got corrected when I went to an MHI conference one time. I called it a mobile home park thinking I was nice, and I was corrected sternly that it's a manufactured housing community. But tell us about that deal. Like you were doing some multifamily stuff, you were doing fix and flips. Like how did this deal even come to you? Were you interested in mobile home parks or what was it?
Yeah, great question. There was a point in time where how do I scale what I'm doing? I had a 6 unit apartment. Like I said, I'd done some fix and flips, done some development, did some new construction, spec houses, that kind of thing. And I don't know where I was at one point in time, but someone started talking about mobile home parks. I might have jumped on a podcast, gone to a meetup, whatever. Someone talked about mobile home parks,
Mhm.
manufactured housing communities. and and I thought, hey, I want to explore that. Maybe there's an opportunity there. And so I spent a year studying the model. And I got under the mentorship of a guy named Frank Rolfe, who
Mhm.
has an entire manufactured housing community training program. So I just devoured all of the CDs back when everything was on CD. And then I went to a couple of his boot camps. And then after a year of studying the model, I felt like, okay, I think I'm ready to make a run at some deals. Let's see what we can find. So contacted all the mobile home park communities across the state of Washington and then found a couple possible deals and started pursuing those, doing due diligence, learning how does it make money, how does it function, and learning
Mhm.
that there are so many different models out there. There's the RV park, there's the mobile home park, there's the RV mobile home parks, combination hybrid. There's the mobile home park that has a couple houses and a
Mhm.
fourplex on it. And there's mobile home parks that are on their own well, on their own septic system. They have a
Mhm.
sewer treatment plant right on site. Some of the parks, the tenants own the home. other one, they're all park owned homes. And
Mhm.
so started learning that, there's not uniformity in the product. And one of the things that I had learned from Frank was you really want to be a landowner. You want to basically create all these land lease agreements with homeowners that own the manufactured home. You
Mhm.
don't want to own any of the homes as a park owner. You want to own the land and the utilities and then provide that space, that pad in the form of a pad rent to a resident in the park that owns the home.
Mhm.
And so that was one of our criteria that we were looking at. And eventually we came to the realization that really anything in Washington State is going to be overpriced. It was
Mhm.
just like, man, the West Coast is brutal. And so I had a business partner at the time, and he was from Indiana, and he said, well, why don't we try the Midwest? Because Frank had said that's probably a better place to do acquisitions. So we started looking in Indiana, just online, and found a park that was listed on some little minuscule mobile home park for sale website, and content was listed by an agent, some guy in Michigan selling a park in Indiana. And
I
so
probably know that guy actually.
he names. And so one thing led to another, and we wrote an offer and we got this thing negotiated. I think they wanted like 900. We ended it eventually got them down to 700,000. And then, okay, we got this under contract. I got on a plane and flew out to Indiana to see what it is what kind of tiger did we catch by the tail? And again, just like, wow, I don't know what I'm doing. No clue. How does this all work? Can I even walk through the park? Something bad going to happen? So we decided that let's go for it. It makes sense. It was like at a 12 cap in its current operating state. The pad rent was like $165 a pad. The owner was out of state. He wasn't paying attention. And the park had some deferred maintenance, definitely. We had the managers lived on site, and they were doing okay for who they were, but
Mhm.
it just did a lot of improvement. So anyway, we did a phase one environmental study and got that report back, and we was like, you know what, the numbers look really good, and let's raise some money for this thing.
Mhm.
It's like, how are we going to pull this off? And so that's the principle right there is you really got to find the deal before you worry about any of the other stuff. It's like if you're going around thinking, man, I got to get some great lenders, that will approve me for a loan, or I've got to get all these investors lined up and create this syndication. Those things need to happen. But if you don't have a deal, why would you go to all that effort, in my opinion? And so that was one of the principles I learned is go get the deal first, get control of the deal, and then do all the other things. And so I had an acquaintance of mine who lived in Yakima, Washington, and he had recently sold his business. And he had shared with me that he had a large amount of cash available to invest. And I knew he had owned some mobile home parks in the state of Washington as well. So I
Mhm.
gave him a call and said, hey, I have a park under contract in Indiana. Here's the numbers. Here's everything that's going on. Would you want to be our lender for this, a private money lender? And anyway, back and forth, I'm just shortening the story. He said yes. What we ended up
Mhm.
doing was a 100% financing. So we had a purchase price of 700,000. He was willing to loan us $700,000. He wanted a 2% loan fee. So there's $14,000. I said, hey, man, can we just roll that fee into the loan? So
Mhm.
I owe you $114,000. And it's great. So I was writing a check for $7,140 a month and interest only payments. And we were off to the races. Park rate in about 12.5 a month. And so we went in and started to improve things. And I don't know how much detail you wanted me to go into this.
Yeah, I like to go into excruciating detail. So, but backing up a little bit with the acquaintance, right? And also, I want to clarify here too, because there's this whole debate about what comes first, right? The deal or the money, right? And I think that at that point in time, Tim, you were known as a real estate guy, right? At that
Yeah.
point in time, in terms of your identity. So sometimes it's like there's a caveat with that, right? Where people that have been doing real estate as a side hustle for many years and they're Joe from, quality control, had a quality control at Procter and Gamble. And then they find a deal, they go to their, friends and family, professional network, and they're like, hey, I got this deal under contract. I'm raising $200,000 for it. It's a great opportunity. Do you want in? And there's that sort of like, well, I've always known you as Joe has had a quality control for Procter and Gamble. What is this real estate investing thing? What did you like, watch some like late night TV infomercial. So I think there's like some nuance with like that sort of thing, right? Because I think that like that, you're probably somebody that goes out there and has relationships with people, know you as somebody that is like is like an access point to real estate or a thought leader in real estate. So what do you have to say about that and capital raising?
I love that. I love that what you're talking about right now to go deeper because so many of this concept you just laid out there gets glossed over. And I think a lot of people miss it that are getting into investing. Again, I consume tons of content
Mhm,
and all the time in the beginning. And one of the things that someone had shared with me was to write what's called a world letter. And especially when you start out as a new agent, as a new investor. And that is that who's everybody in my world? So you
mhm,
got to create a database, and your database is everything. And so it's a matter of kind of brainstorming who's everybody I know in the world. I don't care where they live. Do I know their name? Do I know their phone number? Do I have their email address, their mailing address, and their internet, like social media handles? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a letter that says, hey, here's what's going on with me. I'm sending this letter to my world to let everybody know, give you an update of what's going on in Tim Cornwell's life. Hey, I wanted to let you know that I'm pursuing a path of real estate investment. I'm creating wealth in my life for myself, my family, and the causes I care about. And I'm really excited about this new chapter in my life. And I intend to keep you updated as things progress.
mhm,
And so you lay out what your intentions are, and then the more clear you can be on what kind of investment opportunities you're pursuing and how others can support you in that, that's really important. Hey, I need encouragement. I need deals. I need money. I need other investors. I need lenders. I need inspect. So you're sharing with your world, and some people won't care. It'll just go over there. Other people will get excited about it. And
mhm,
so that database is so key. And so every time you go to an event, every time, a real estate investor meetup or a birthday party or a wedding, you're engaging with people. And part of your new identity is the hat you're wearing is I'm a real estate investor.
mhm,
What do you do? Well, I work down at the factory or whatever job you said. I work in tech, but I'm really excited about what I'm doing in the real estate investing part of my life. And
mhm,
everybody wants to know about that. I was like, really? You're doing real estate, but what does that look like? And so you can share with people. And then and like, hey, what's your number? I'll keep you in the loop. And so building that network of relationships and keeping them updated on what's going on and really being clear on something called like your buy box. Like, here's my buy box. I'm looking to acquire these properties at this price in this location. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm up to. And so you're constantly communicating your intentions through like direct mail, through social media, through email, keeping people updated. My partner on the mobile home park, his name's Greg, and
mhm,
I, what we did is we sat down and made a list of everybody in our area that we felt might want to invest in these deals with us. And
mhm,
so we wrote a letter, we crafted a letter, we wrote it to about 100 people, mailed it out, and then we did like a social media meetup at my house. We
mhm,
did a little queue, and about 20 people showed up. We just said, hey, we're launching this new career. We're doing investments. We wanted to invite you in to give us insight and wisdom, support. And then if you wanted to participate in any deal we bring to you, you would have opportunity to do that.
mhm,
And so it's just constantly doing that. It's constantly communicating what your intentions are. And the more clarity you have on your intention, it blows me away at the amount of DMs and emails and texts that I get from people that say, hey man, I want to get on. I saw you're doing this deal. I heard you were doing this. Someone told me about that. And all of a sudden, like, hey, I've got money and I've got friends that have money. These people have
mhm,
money. We want to get on. And so what happens is most people don't want to do the deal.
mhm,
They want to put money in the deal to get a return because they're putting their money in the stock market. They're buying an
mhm,
index fund, or they've got some kind of a mutual fund program, or they're paying some advisor thousands of dollars a year to handle their money, and they're not getting the results they want. And they feel completely out of control.
mhm,
Just handed everything over to this guy. I don't know if he's, I don't know what he's going to do with it. Man, it would sure be nice just to have a real asset that I could like point at and go, I know the address. I could drive there today. And there it is. That's what's
mhm,
generated all this income. So back to that thing that you were talking about of this intentionality of relationship and having that identity, it's so, so, so important. Because if you go around thinking, this happens to real estate agents a lot. I train a lot of real estate agents and they have a really hard time identifying as a real estate agent. Like somehow it's like the scarlet letter. Like people are going to judge me. So what happens is you create these self-limiting beliefs about how people are going to perceive you as a real estate investor or real estate agent, either one. And now it's limiting my ability to go out and do what I want to do, to blow up and reach my potential. Now I've let a mental block, self-limiting belief. Well, I don't want to share that with people because they're going to judging me negatively. They're going to think I'm greedy. They're going to do all the, like, in your head, there's all these evil voices that want to take you down. And
Mhm.
so I think you have to decide what's more important, the future I want to create or these voices in my head. And you have to use courage to get past that. That's the key, is courage, courageously leaning into an identity you want to create for yourself so you can create the future you want.
Excellent. That was awesome. I want to talk about this acquaintance. This is a pretty big check writer. Where'd that relationship come from?
Same meet a real estate group. I knew Roger from a real estate boot camp they had gone to. And it's weird how God works, because I knew Roger, didn't really talk to him too much at the boot camp, but knew that, oh, he's from Yakima. I'm from Bellingham. And then we ran into each other at the airport one day, just out of nowhere. We're at a restaurant. My wife and I at a restaurant, going to fly somewhere. There he is, like 3 booths over. He comes over and talks to me. Well, that like struck up this conversation about, well, what can we do together? What's going on in your life and everything. And then that led to a phone call, and I want to get to know him better because I knew he was doing mobile home parks and was something I was thinking about pursuing. So originally I started asking him about his experience. And then eventually in a conversation, he said, hey, I just sold my business. I got a lot of money. You got
Mhm.
anything I could put it to work in?
Mhm.
And so that was it, man. It was just being at the right time at the right place, but being you only get in the right time in the right place if you do the right work ahead of time, you know? And so just being open and collaborative and friendly.
Yeah, I mean, a major book that was impactful in my life was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and
Love that.
it's got that Abraham-esque type of, thing in it. Put your positivity out there into the universe, and you're intentional that the universe, God, will conspire to give you what you desire. And so that is so cool. So yeah, it was just kind of like one of those, it was intent. All these things are intentional, but there's also like these like happy accidents that sort of just happen out of them, which are just like, you can't explain it, just the mystery of the universe. So you got this opportunity. So you called him up. Did you email him? How did that come? I want to get in the weeds in terms of that sort of seminal moment around like
Yeah,
how that turned into a check for the deal.
absolutely. No, it was a phone call, you know, hey, Roger, we got a deal under contract in Indiana. Here's what it is. Here's the numbers. But he's like, oh yeah, okay. That sounds pretty good. Write it up, send it to me. Let me see what you got. So I sent
Mhm.
him the purchase and sale agreement, sent him all the numbers, rent roll in the park, pictures of the park, anything I could provide for him to make him feel like he was confident in that. Now I've done a lot of private money lending. I borrowed a lot of money from private people in my life, friends, family, and
Mhm.
different avenues, different places you'd never expect someone to loan you hundreds of thousands of dollars. And gosh, where was I going with that?
So you had the
I,
call, you sent him over the numbers and the bit like a high level business plan, stuff like that.
ah, and I sent him the information. So, oh, I know what I was going to say. So, anytime I've borrowed money from a private money person in my life, there's a personal relationship there. And
Mhm.
I always say this to them. I say, you know what? I don't want you to loan me this money unless you want to own that property one day. Because if I get hit by a bus or something happens to me and I default on this loan, you're going to own that property. How do
Mhm.
you feel about owning that property if a worst case scenario came around? And so he said, I'd be okay with that. These numbers work pretty good. I like this. This is a good property. But I've done that multiple times with different properties where I've done private money. Always want to say that to them very deliberately. If I get hit by a bus, you're going to own this. Are you okay owning this property? And so my deals have always been good enough. There's always been enough meat on the bone where someone sees equity that if I default, hey, that's okay. Even Roger, with 100% financing, saw the upside potential on this park, and he had owned parks before. So it was a familiar model for him. And so he said, yeah, let's go for it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, like I kind of have a similar process when we have a deal under contract. It first starts with a phone call to people that are in our database that have either, first and foremost are the people that have already done deals with us, because sometimes you go back to the well and there's bigger checks to be had in terms of participations out of it. But I'll get a kind of a temperature check on the deal, just high level over the phone. Most importantly, how they're getting paid back. And then if they're interested in hearing more about it, as I send over my deck, it's like it's in an email. It's not a fancy presentation, PowerPoint or anything like that, but it has the fundamental stuff like the rent roll, the financials, the pro forma, what our business plan is, how they're getting paid back. And then I'll follow up with a phone call and I'll ask them, are you still interested? And I'm definitely interested, or no, it's not really my cup of tea. If they say they're interested, I always ask them this question. I was like, have I scared you? Have I scared you off with this? Like are you sure you want to do this? Because I really want to give them an out, one, and then also, I want to double tie them down too, because there's one thing with the actual verbal commitment, and then there's one with the actual when their hand starts moving a pen over a check for a deal. That's a whole different type of story. So where did it go from there? Were there a first lien position mortgage on the property
From the seller or?
from this private money lender?
Oh yeah.
Uh,
So he was a first position promissory note, deed of trust. Absolutely. One of the things I did in that process is our due diligence was intense. So I have
mhm,
a spreadsheet with about 247 questions that I needed answered about that park. And the amount
mhm,
of back and forth that I did with the listing agent on this thing was insane.
uh-huh,
And because we kept building out our spreadsheet, I need to make sure we've got answers to every one of these questions before we go to closing. And so it's a little grueling. You get a
mhm,
little weary in the process, but it's so worth it because, trying to avoid surprises, there's going to be surprises no matter what you do. But if you can eliminate those unforced errors, then it's going to be better. But, I think Roger's just a solid guy that's a man of his word. I had went over to Yakima to see him before we closed on the deal and
mhm,
go, hey, show me your parks. Show me the parks that you own or have owned over here so that I can see what you're doing and give me some advice on how to run this park. And
mhm,
so we continued to work on that relationship before he was ready to just do it. And I think I showed him because of the level of due diligence we were doing, because of my efforts to go see him, understand the model, the due diligence sheet. I think he felt comfortable, and just knowing, having an experience with me over the last prior like 2 years gave him the confidence to do it.
mhm. So let's walk this forward a little bit. So let's just say you closed on the property. Tell me what happened from there.
So we made another trip out, of course, and it was like, okay, this is our deal now. So I had to get all the utilities transferred over, went to the city, got all that handled, then I started learning things from the city about the park, their experience with the park, met with the park managers, sat down with them, talked to them. What's your experience? What was your experience with the past owner? All that, walking the park, looking at each unit, and then starting to create, basically I created a site plan with
Mhm,
every park, with every pad number, what trailer was on every pad,
mhm,
age of it, what they're paying in rent, really drilled down further from the rent roll I had. Does that match up? Is that really the right unit? Taking pictures of each home on each pad, figuring out we had a lot of empty pads.
mhm,
So that was the upside on this thing. So we had 51 pads, but I think we only had like 30 homes in the park. So
mhm,
that's what we did is we went and started buying used homes, bringing them into the park, setting them on pads, getting them all connected and ready to go, and then selling that home to a new resident. But yeah, the first week we were out there just figuring it out. What is it? What did we just buy? And we wrote a letter to the tenants. Hey, the park is under new ownership. Here's our intention. And so
mhm,
being really clear with these tenants, our intention is we're going to establish some new park rules and we're going to hold you accountable to the new park rules. And we will be raising rents. We are going to do some improvements in the park. You're going to see some improvements. And so we just laid out what was happening. And we didn't say, here's me. And I'm your owner, Tim. No, it was like, this came through the manager because
mhm,
I don't want people calling me. No, I
mhm.
didn't give him like, here's my phone number, email address, or any of that stuff. No, underneath it, here's your contact people. And I worked it all through the on-site managers we had. Eventually, what happened is we had to let them go. We brought in another manager who didn't live in the park, but she lived in the community in the area. And
Mhm,
she had other parks that she was managing as well. So we raised rents. We went in and did some improvements on utilities. They had a lot of problems with frozen pipes there. And
Hmm.
so we went in and we had everybody skirt their trailer. We had everybody insulate their pipes and we had everybody put heat tape on their pipes. And
Hmm.
just like we sent Greg's son, we sent him out there to run that whole project because we didn't want water leaks. What had happened was a pipe broke, water had been just running for days, created a lake. And we were in the back door. The city comes to us and says, "You're going to have to, wow, you have a hefty water bill here." And so we were just learning how to operate a park and just the importance of heat tape on water lines.
Hmm. Yeah. For those of you who are listening here, I'm like smiling ear to ear over what Tim's telling me because I've gone through those types of transitions with communities like several times. And the good thing about the MHC business is, I mean, there's arts to certain things, but there's a lot of science behind it because like everything that Tim is talking about is ubiquitous across the park space with. Yeah, I remember one of the times I was director of operations for a national real estate development company, and I would do site visits once a month at all the properties we had across the country. And one of the things we did was a skirting audit. And so I was like, this skirting looks jacked up, to use the park manager's words. And so you got to send a letter to the resident to tell them to fix it so that we can have a community that has good curb appeal and stuff like that, as well as the heat tape and all that stuff. So yeah, it's awesome that I wasn't the only person that dealt with that.
Yeah, I will say a couple things we did right. One is we were on city water and sewer.
Hmm.
So that's just a huge thing if your utilities are public utilities. And then about three-quarters of the park, the road was a city street that
Hmm.
went by all the homes. So we didn't have to do any of the maintenance on that, any of the snow
Wow.
plowing. And then water sewer was just, we didn't have to worry about a well, a septic system. Having that as part, like, I don't even have to think about it, was
Hmm.
huge.
Yeah. Now let's talk about moving this forward a little bit. Like, what was the business plan? Was this to stabilize the property, bring some homes in, increase the value, refinance it, and then get Roger paid back, or like, tell me
Got it.
about that.
Yeah, that was the intention, was to, again, fill the park, raise rents, and then refinance out of that 12% money. We were about 2 years into the deal and started to think, let's see what we can do to get some permanent financing. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to call Roger.
Hmm.
And I said, "Hey, Roger, it's been great working with you. I hope you've been enjoying getting your payments on time every single month since day one. And I'm thinking about possibly pursuing some bank financing just because 12% is a lot of money. We've got the park stabilized. However, I really enjoy working with you and I would love to continue to just help you earn income on your money rather than doing that to a bank who I don't have any relationship with. Would
Hmm.
you consider reducing the interest rate on the loan?"
Hmm.
And he said, "Yeah." So we went from 12% to 9%, if I remember right. And that was enough for me to, like, I think that was like $3,000 a month. And that was
Hmm.
enough for me. You know what? This relationship with Roger is more important than going out and getting permanent loan financing. So let's ride this for a while
Hmm.
at 9%. Let's continue to fill the park up. And then, man, we'll cross that bridge down the road.
Hmm.
And so my intention was, and I have a business partner, but my intention was probably hold this thing long term, get it filled up. And we had about 43, 44 pads filled, still had a ways to go, another seven or so. And my partner, Greg, who's a contractor, is like, "Dude, I am so busy right now." Like 2020, 2019, 2020, 2021, that was just for builders,
Hmm.
insane. And he's
Yeah.
like, "I can't give any time to this park because there's just things that come up with park ownership you deal with." And he's like, "I just don't think I don't want to do this anymore.
Hmm.
And I need to eliminate any distractions in my life so I can go full on in my current business." I
Hmm.
said, "Okay, well, let's sell it. I mean, let's just see what happens." And so we talked to a couple listing agents. That was frustrating because they just didn't, they didn't get it. They didn't care. It was like,
Hmm.
they just figured we would just sign a listing agreement and call it good. And they weren't collaborative.
Hmm.
And we ended up posting it just on a forum, mobile home
Hmm.
park forum. And immediately, like, my phone just lit up.
Hmm.
And I had crazy offers that didn't even seem real. Like, I'll give you 50,000 non-refundable right now, and I'll pay you $100,000 over what you are asking for it. And I'm like, I just don't trust that. That just seems
Uh-huh.
the crap out of me. I mean, so anyway, we ended up selling to a group that do mobile home park investing, and they bought it. And we bought the park for 700. 3 years later, we sold it for 1,350,000.
Wow. That's an amazing story. So I guess what are your key takeaways from this experience and like what it's done for you fast forwarding to now?
I think that go back to what we were talking about before. I was thinking about every transaction I've ever done as an investor, every acquisition, every deal always started here in my mind. It
Mhm.
was a thought, it was an idea that I gave value to. I acknowledged the thought and I gave it
Mhm.
credibility and then I pursued it.
Yeah.
And what if, so the thought was at one point in time, maybe I could buy a mobile home park. Maybe I could be a mobile home park investor. So it was just a thought, but then I pursued it and started taking action. And so I think the lesson is if that's true, if that principle is correct, and you can create whatever reality that you can think of, then lean into that and go bigger. And so for like right now, I started with one wholesale deal, now mobile home parks, then apartments. Well,
Mhm.
now my go bigger is I'm looking for bigger whales, 50 unit, 100 unit buildings or larger. My intention right now is to acquire 500 units
Mhm.
and achieve uh, a net positive cash flow, passive income of $50,000 a month. So
Mhm.
that's my intention now. But 10 years ago, I can't even think that big. And so my lesson is that I did it. The lesson is I set out, I had the intention to become a mobile home park investor and to buy a park and figure out how to do the value add and how to get it to cash flow and how to get the financing, how to close and how to manage and how to improve and out of state, you know, 2,500 miles away. And I was able to accomplish all those things. So the lesson learned is, I guess nothing's impossible. That's really the lesson.
Amen, brother. So, hey, if you are listening to this right now, the recorded version, you want to get exclusive question and answer Q&A with beasts like Tim Cornwell, like Gina Barbaro, Matt Faircloth, Chris Seveny, Reed Goosens, Ashley Kerr, and many of our other esteemed guests, you got to join our Facebook group, Go Big Live, Real Estate Investors Group on Facebook. Just extend a request to join in. I'll let you in. It's completely free. And you can get exclusive access to live Q&A here and extend the masterclass into after class hours. And we've learned so much from you today, Tim. I really appreciate you coming on. And we are going to my DMs are lighting up right now with some questions for you. So let's get into it. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. My pleasure.